Captain Lee Taman stood on the bridge of the battleship Thunder's Edge, watching the stars through the massive viewport. 15 years of war had left its mark on everything. The once bright hull of his ship now bore countless scars from energy, weapons. The crew moved with tired efficiency, their faces showing the weight of too many battles. "Captain, incoming transmission from Fleet Command," reported Lieutenant Park Sora from her communication station. Taman straightened his uniform and walked to the center of the bridge. "Put it through." Admiral Park Ji-won's weathered face appeared on the main screen. She looked older than her 55 years, her black hair now streaked with gray. "Taman, we have a situation. The Velari have requested a meeting." "Another trap?" Taman asked. The crystal-skinned aliens had used fake peace talks before to launch surprise attacks. "We don't think so. This time it's different. Queen Rayleigh herself is coming to the neutral station. She's bringing minimal guards and wants to talk face-to-face." Taman raised an eyebrow. The Velari Queen never left her homeworld. For her, to risk such a meeting meant something big was happening. "I want you to lead the negotiations," Admiral Ji-won continued. "Your record speaks for itself. You've fought them, but you've also saved Velari civilians during the Titan Station incident. They requested you specifically." 2 days later, Taman found himself aboard Neutral Station 7, a small outpost built in the empty space between human and Velari territory. The station was cold and functional, designed only for emergency meetings and prisoner exchanges. Commander Kim Do-yun, his closest friend and tactical advisor, stood beside him in the meeting room. "I still think this is a bad idea," Do-yun muttered. "The Queen could be planning anything." "Maybe," Taman replied, adjusting his dress uniform. "But if there's a chance to end this war without more bloodshed, we have to take it." The doors opened with a soft hiss, and Taman felt his breath catch. Queen Rayleigh entered the room, and she was nothing like he expected. The Velari he had fought were tall and angular, their crystal skin reflecting light in harsh patterns. But the Queen was different. Her crystal skin seemed to glow with soft inner light, and her movements were graceful, almost dance-like. She wore simple robes that seemed to be made of woven light itself. Behind her walked 2 guards, their faces hidden behind ceremonial masks. But Taman noticed they carried no weapons. "Captain Lee Taman," the Queen spoke, her voice like music played on crystal bells. "I have heard much about you." "Your Majesty?" Taman bowed slightly. "I'm honored by this meeting, though I admit, I'm surprised you came in person." Queen Rayleigh moved to the opposite side of the negotiation table but did not sit. Instead, she placed her hands flat on the surface, and the metal began to glow softly where she touched it. "This war has gone on too long," she said simply. "Both our peoples are dying. My advisors tell me we could fight for another 100 years and neither side would win." "Our analysis agrees," Taman replied carefully, "but previous peace talks have failed. What makes this different?" The Queen's large eyes, like cut diamonds, focused on him intently. "Because I am prepared to offer something that has never been offered before. Something that will bind our peoples together permanently." Do-yun shifted nervously beside him. "What kind of offer?" Queen Rayleigh straightened, and her crystal skin began to pulse with brighter light. "I offer myself in marriage to a human representative, a true union between our species." The room fell completely silent. Taman felt his heart stop for a moment. Marriage? Between human and Velari? It was impossible. They were different species. Entirely. "Your Majesty," Do-yun spoke first, his voice strained. That's not possible. Our species are completely different. We can't even touch without protective equipment." "The barriers are not as great as you think," the Queen replied calmly. "For too long, both sides have focused on our differences instead of our similarities. We both value honor. We both love our children. We both want peace." Taman found his voice. "Even if it were physically possible, why marriage? Why not a treaty or alliance?" Queen Rayleigh stepped closer to the table. "Because treaties can be broken. Alliances can be betrayed. But marriage creates bonds that cannot be undone. It would show both our peoples that we are truly committed to peace." "You're talking about a political marriage, Taman," said slowly. But marriage should be about love, not politics. For the first time, the Queen smiled, and Taman was surprised to see it looked remarkably human. Who says it cannot be both? I have studied your people, Captain Taman. I have watched recordings of your actions in battle. You show mercy to enemies. You risk your life to save others. You are exactly the kind of person I could learn to love. Do-yun stepped forward. Your Majesty, this is madness. Even if such a union were possible, our governments would never approve it. Then perhaps it is time for new leadership, the Queen said quietly. Leadership willing to take risks for peace. Taman's mind was racing. The idea was insane, impossible, and completely against every military protocol he had ever learned. But something about the Queen's sincerity struck him deeply. When she spoke about wanting peace, he could hear the pain in her voice. She had lost people too. How would it even work? He asked. We're different species. Queen Rayalith raised one crystalline hand. May I demonstrate something? I promise no harm will come to you. Against Do-yun's sharp intake of breath, Taman nodded. The Queen closed her eyes, and her crystal skin began to glow brighter. Suddenly, Taman felt a presence in his mind, not invading but gently touching his thoughts. Through the connection, he could feel what she felt. The weight of ruling during wartime, the pain of sending soldiers to die. The desperate hope that this meeting might save both their peoples. But more than that, he could feel her loneliness. Despite being a queen, she was isolated, carrying the burden of her people's survival alone. In that moment, he understood that her offer wasn't just political. She truly believed that connection between individuals could bridge the gap between species. The connection lasted only seconds, but it left Taman breathless. When he looked at Queen Rayalith now, she no longer seemed alien. She seemed like someone who had been carrying a terrible weight alone for too long. I volunteer, he said suddenly. Taman, no! Do-yun grabbed his arm. You can't make this decision alone. You need authorization from... I volunteer, Taman repeated, looking directly into the Queen's diamond eyes. If this marriage can end the war and save lives on both sides, then I accept your proposal. Queen Rayalith's crystal skin pulsed. With warm light and for the first time in 15 years of war, Taman felt hope. 3 days after accepting Queen Rayalith's proposal, Taman found himself aboard a Velari transport ship heading toward their homeworld. The ship itself was a marvel of crystal and light technology, its walls pulsing with soft energy patterns. That somehow felt alive. Dr. Yoon Minji, the expedition's xenobiologist, sat across from him in the passenger compartment, frantically taking notes on everything she observed. Her short hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes darted constantly between her instruments and the crystal walls. The readings are incredible, she muttered more to herself than to Taman. Their ships aren't just made of crystal. The crystal is actually growing, adapting to conditions in real time. Is that why you think the marriage might actually work? Taman asked. Minji looked up from her notes. Honestly? I have no idea if it will work, but the Queen's demonstration showed that their consciousness can interface with ours somehow. If she can temporarily adapt her crystalline structure, she shrugged. It might be possible. The transport shuddered slightly as they dropped out of hyperspace. Through the transparent crystal viewport, Taman got his first look at Luxaria, the Velari homeworld. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The planet's surface sparkled like a giant jewel, with massive crystal formations reaching up from continents that glowed with internal light. Storms of pure energy danced across the atmosphere, but instead of looking destructive, they seemed almost musical. Beautiful, Taman whispered. And dangerous, added a new voice. Prince Veltar, the Queen's brother, had entered their compartment. Unlike his sister's warm glow, his crystal skin was cold and sharp-edged. Many humans who have tried to visit Luxaria have died. Our world is not made for your kind. Taman stood and bowed politely. Your Highness, I appreciate your concern, but I'm willing to take the risk. Are you? Veltar moved closer, his diamond-like eyes reflecting no warmth. The bonding trials will test more than your willingness, Captain. They will test whether your body can survive what my sister's marriage requires. As they landed at the Crystal Palace, Taemin was met by an escort of Velari nobles, but he was surprised to also see General Choi Sung-hoon, a hard-faced human military officer who had opposed the marriage from the beginning. "Captain," Sung-hoon said curtly, "I'm here on direct. Orders from Earth Command to observe the proceedings and report back." "Understood, General," Taemin replied, though he could see the disapproval in the older man's eyes. Queen Rayleigh met them at the palace entrance. In the light of her homeworld, she seemed even more radiant than before. But Taemin could sense something different about her now. There was nervousness in the way her light pulsed. "Welcome to Luxaria, Captain Taemin," she said formally, though her eyes held warmth. "Are you prepared to undergo the bonding trials?" "I am, Your Majesty." She led them through corridors of living crystal that sang softly as they passed. The palace wasn't built so much as grown, its walls and chambers flowing together in organic curves that somehow felt perfectly natural. "The trials have 3 parts," the Queen explained as they walked. "The trial of understanding, where you must learn to communicate in our light language. The trial of endurance, where your body must adapt to our world's energy fields. And the trial of unity, where our minds must successfully join without harm to either." Dr. Minji spoke up. "Your Majesty, my scans show that prolonged exposure to your world's energy fields could be fatal to humans. Are you certain this is safe?" Queen Rayleigh stopped walking and turned to face them. "Dr. Minji, nothing about ending a 15-year war is safe, but I have been studying human physiology for months, preparing for this moment. I believe it can be done." The first trial took place in a chamber filled with floating crystal formations. Queen Rayleigh explained that Velari communication was not just sound, but patterns of light that carried emotional and conceptual meaning. "Watch," she said, and her skin began to pulse in complex patterns. The crystals around the room responded, creating cascading waves of color that somehow conveyed concepts directly to Taemin's mind. He understood concepts like peace, hope, and connection without hearing words. "Now you try," she encouraged. Taemin felt foolish, but he tried to focus on the concept of friendship while looking at the Queen. To his amazement, several of the crystals began to glow softly. "Remarkable," Dr. Minji breathed. "You're actually interfacing with their technology." Over the following days, Taemin threw himself into learning Velari culture. He discovered that their society was built around harmony and collective consciousness, but that individual expression was also valued highly. The Queen, he learned, was chosen not by birth but by her ability to balance the needs of all Velari. The second trial nearly killed him. In a chamber filled with pure energy fields, Taemin had to survive for 1 hour while his body was bombarded with the same forces that powered Velari technology. Within minutes, his human physiology began to fail. His heart rhythm became erratic, his breathing labored. "Stop the trial!" Dr. Minji shouted, reading his vital signs on her scanner. "He's going into cardiac arrest." But Queen Rayleigh suddenly stepped into the energy field with him. "No," she said firmly. "We do this together." She placed her crystalline hands on Taemin's chest, and he felt her consciousness merge with his again. But this time, instead of just sharing thoughts, she was somehow sharing her ability to process the energy fields. Her crystal nature filtered the dangerous forces, allowing his human body to adapt gradually. They stood together in the swirling energy for the full hour, her light mixing with his life force in patterns that Dr. Minji later said defied every law of biology she knew. "How is this possible?" General Sung-hoon demanded afterward, as Taemin recovered in the medical chamber. "Love," Queen Rayleigh said simply. "When 2 consciousness truly connect, the impossible becomes merely difficult." Prince Veltar watched from the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Sister, you're taking enormous risks. If the unity trial fails..." "It won't fail," she said with quiet confidence. The third trial took place in the Queen's private chambers, a room where crystal walls curved into a dome overhead, creating a space that felt both intimate and vast. Only Taemin, the Queen, and Dr. Minji were present. "This is the most dangerous part," Queen Rhaelith explained. We must merge our consciousness completely, but maintain our individual selves. If we merge too deeply, we may not be able to separate. If we don't merge deeply enough, the bond required for marriage cannot form. She stood before him, her crystalline form beginning to shift and change. Taman watched in fascination as her crystal skin became more translucent, taking on an almost human-like quality while still maintaining its light-based nature. "Take my hands," she said softly. The moment their skin touched, Taman felt his consciousness expand. He was still himself, but he was also aware of Rhaelith's thoughts, her memories, her fears and hopes. He experienced her childhood on Luxaria, learning to control her abilities. He felt her pain when the war began, her desperate search for a way to peace. In return, she experienced his memories, his training as a pilot, his first battle, the friends he had lost to the war, but also his moments of mercy, times when he had chosen compassion over victory. For a perfect moment, they were truly unified. Two minds, two souls, but one shared purpose. Then something went wrong. The energy connection began to spiral out of control. Taman felt his individual identity starting to dissolve into the larger pattern of the Queen's consciousness. At the same time, he could sense that she was struggling to maintain her own sense of self. "The bond is too strong," Dr. Minji shouted, reading energy spikes on her instruments. "You need to separate now." But Queen Rhaelith made a choice that changed everything. Instead of trying to separate, she poured more of her own energy into stabilizing Taman's consciousness, using her life force to anchor his identity even as her own began to fade. "Rhaelith, no," Taman managed to say, feeling her sacrifice. "Don't give up yourself for me." With tremendous effort, he pushed back against the merging force, using every bit of willpower to separate their minds while still maintaining the connection they had built. It felt like tearing part of his soul away, but he managed to create space between their consciousness while keeping the bridge intact. They collapsed together, but they were still themselves. Changed, connected, but individual. "It worked, Doctor," Minji said in amazement. "The bond is stable, but you're both still yourselves." Queen Rhaelith looked at Taman with new understanding. "You saved us both," she whispered. "That is when I knew this marriage would be real, not just political." Outside the chamber, Prince Veltar spoke quietly into a communication device. "The trials are complete. The human survived. Proceed with the next phase of the plan." But inside the chamber, two beings from different worlds had discovered that love truly could bridge any gap. The news of Taman's successful completion of the bonding trials spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, representatives from both human and Velari worlds began arriving on Luxaria for what was being called the most important wedding. In galactic history, Ambassador Han Sori, Earth's top diplomatic negotiator, arrived with a team of protocol specialists who looked completely overwhelmed by the task ahead of them. She was a small woman with graying hair and sharp eyes who had negotiated dozens of treaties, but nothing had prepared her for this. "Captain Taman," she said during their first meeting, "I need you to understand the magnitude of what you've started. Every major news network in human space is sending reporters. 3 different religious leaders want to officiate, and the politicians—" She rubbed her temples. "Half of them are calling you a hero, the other half are calling for your court-martial." Taman, still recovering from the trials, sat in the crystal chair that had been specially grown to accommodate his human physiology. "What about the Queen's side?" "Similar chaos, from what I can tell. Master Kim Jae-won, their equivalent of our wedding officiants, has been studying human marriage customs for weeks. He's trying to create a ceremony that honors both cultures without accidentally declaring war on anyone." Captain Oh Huna, Taman's younger sister, had arrived on the morning shuttle. Unlike the diplomatic personnel, she marched straight up to her brother and hugged him tightly. "You idiot," she said, tears in her eyes. "When I heard what you'd volunteered for, I thought you'd lost your mind." "Maybe I did," Taman admitted. "But Hyuna, when I connected with her during the trials, I felt something I never expected. She's not just alien royalty. She's someone who's been carrying the weight of her people's survival just like any human commander would. And she chose to risk everything for peace." Huna studied her brother's face. "You love her, don't you?" not just as a political alliance, but really love her. Before Taman could answer, Queen Rayleigh entered the room. Her crystal form had continued to adapt since the trials, becoming more translucent and somehow more human-like while retaining its ethereal beauty. "Captain O'Hyuna," the Queen said, her voice carrying the musical tones that marked all Velari speech. "Your brother has told me much about you. I hope we can become sisters in truth, not just in law." Hyuna bowed formally, but Taman could see the confusion in her eyes. She was trying to reconcile the alien queen she'd imagined with the graceful, gentle being standing before her. Dr. Minji had been working around the clock on what she called the greatest challenge of my career. The harmony suit she was developing would allow Taman and Rayleigh to safely touch and share consciousness during their wedding ceremony without risking the dangerous energy feedback they had experienced during the trials. "The suit uses a network of microcrystals woven into the fabric," she explained to the assembled wedding party. "They'll regulate the energy exchange between you two, preventing overload while still allowing the connection you need for the ceremony." The wedding preparations became a diplomatic dance unlike anything in galactic history. Velari traditions required the ceremony to take place during an energy storm, when the planet's natural forces would bless the union. Human traditions demanded exchange of rings and spoken vows. Both cultures insisted on the presence of their most important political and religious leaders. Master Jaehwan, a tall Velari whose crystal skin showed his advanced age in its deep blue coloration, worked with Earth's religious representatives to create a ceremony that would satisfy everyone. "The challenge," he explained to Taman during one planning session, "is that Velari marriage bonds are formed through consciousness, merging while humans exchange physical tokens and spoken promises. We must honor both." As the wedding day approached, opposition from both sides grew more vocal. General Sung Hoon led a faction of human military officers who saw the marriage as surrender disguised as diplomacy. On the Velari side, Prince Veltar had gathered noble houses who believed their queen was diminishing herself by bonding with a lesser species. The wedding was set to take place in the Grand Chamber of Unity, a massive crystalline dome that could accommodate thousands of guests while allowing the energy storms of Luxaria to flow through the ceremony space. The morning of the wedding, Taman stood before a mirror made of polished crystal, wearing the specially designed harmony suit under his formal dress uniform. The suit felt strange against his skin, warm and slightly vibrating, as if it were alive. "Nervous?" Commander Do-hyun asked, adjusting his own formal uniform. He had been chosen as Taman's best man, a concept that had required considerable explanation. To the Velari. "Terrified," Taman admitted. "Not of marrying her. I know that's right, but of everything else. The politics, the responsibility, the chance that this could all go wrong and make the war worse instead of ending it." The ceremony began at sunset, as the energy storms that gave Luxaria its unique beauty began to dance across the sky. Thousands of guests filled the grand chamber, humans and Velari sitting side by side for the first time in 15 years without weapons. Queen Rayleigh appeared at the opposite end of the chamber, and Taman's breath caught. She had transformed herself more dramatically than ever before, her crystal form taking on an almost human silhouette while maintaining the ethereal glow that marked her as Velari royalty. She wore robes that seemed to be woven from light itself, shifting between silver and gold as she moved. As they approached each other in the center of the chamber, the energy storm overhead began to pulse in rhythm with their heartbeats. Master Jaehwan raised his arms, and his voice carried throughout the chamber without amplification. "Today, two worlds become one. Today, two hearts forge a bond stronger than the forces that have divided us." The ceremony proceeded beautifully. Taman and Rayleigh exchanged rings made of crystal and human gold, their different traditions blending seamlessly. They spoke vows in both languages, promising to protect each other and their peoples. But as Master Jaehwan began the final consciousness, bonding ritual, explosions suddenly rocked the chamber. Armed figures in both human military gear and Velari battle armor burst through the entrances, firing energy weapons at the wedding party. The guests screamed and dove for cover as the grand chamber became a battlefield. "It's a joint operation!" Ambassador Sori shouted over the chaos. "Human and Velari extremists working together!" General Sung Hoon's voice boomed over a loudspeaker. This farce ends now. Humanity will not be enslaved by alien manipulation. From the opposite side, Prince Veltar's crystalline form blazed with aggressive light. The royal bloodline will not be polluted by lesser beings. But something unexpected happened. As the attackers closed in, Taman and Raelith instinctively moved toward each other. The Harmony suits activated automatically in response to the danger, and their consciousness merged just as they had planned for the ceremony. Suddenly, they could anticipate each other's movements perfectly. Taman's human tactical training combined with Raelith's ability to manipulate the energy fields around them. They moved as one being with two bodies, dodging energy blasts while coordinating a defense of their guests. "The emergency protocols," Raelith called out, her voice somehow reaching every Velari in the chamber directly through their shared consciousness network. At the same time, Taman shouted commands to the human security forces, his military experience allowing him to coordinate their response with precision. The battle was brief but intense. The combined security forces, working together for the first time under unified command, quickly overwhelmed the attackers. But the message was clear. Not everyone wanted this marriage to succeed. As the smoke cleared and medical teams tended to the wounded, Master Jae-Hwan stepped forward again. His crystal skin was cracked from protecting guests during the attack, but his voice remained strong. "The forces of division have shown their hand," he declared. "But they have also shown us why this union is necessary. Only together can we stand against those who would keep us apart." Queen Raelith and Taman, still linked through their harmony suits, faced their guests. The attack had transformed the ceremony from a political event into something deeply personal. They had literally fought side by side to protect the people they cared about. "I now pronounce you bonded in consciousness and united in purpose," Master Jae-Hwan announced. "May your union bring peace to the stars." As they kissed, the energy storm overhead seemed to respond, creating patterns of light that bathed the entire chamber in warm, golden radiance. For a moment, every person present, human and Velari alike, felt connected to something larger than themselves. But even as they celebrated, troubling news was arriving. Ambassador Sori approached the newlyweds as the reception began. "Your Majesties," she said, using the formal address that recognized Taman's new status as royal consort, "our intelligence services have discovered something disturbing. The attack wasn't just about stopping the wedding. General Sung-hoon and Prince Veltar were being manipulated by a third party." "What third party?" Taman asked, though he already suspected the answer would change everything. "The Shadowkin Empire. They've been playing both sides against each other for years, weakening us for invasion. The wedding was just the revelation about Shadowkin manipulation changed everything. Within hours of the wedding, emergency sessions were being held in both human and Velari command centers. The newlyweds found themselves at the center of the most complex military operation in galactic history. Admiral Kang Nari, a veteran human fleet commander, stood before the Joint Command Council that had been hastily established in the Crystal Palace's war room. Her scarred face and missing left arm testified to her experience in battle, but her eyes showed excitement at the unprecedented challenge ahead. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, addressing both human officers and Velari military leaders, "we're looking at a complete restructuring of our combined fleets. Thanks to Queen Raelith and Captain Taman's unique bond, we have the ability to coordinate our forces in ways never before possible." Dr. Song Kyung-ho, a thin human scientist with thick glasses, activated a holographic display showing ship designs that seemed to blend human and Velari technology. "The marriage bond has given us access to compatibility protocols we never knew existed. Human ships can now be powered by Velari energy crystals, while Velari vessels can utilize human tactical systems." Taman and Raelith sat at the head of the council table, their hands joined. The harmony suits had been modified to allow them to maintain their consciousness linked during extended periods, making them living translators between the two military cultures. "The Shadowkin fleet is 3 days away," Queen Raelith reported, her voice carrying information she was receiving directly from Velari scout ships through the planetary consciousness network. 200 vessels, armed with weapons we've never seen before." Through their shared link, Taman processed the tactical information with human strategic thinking. "They know our weaknesses, because they've been watching us fight each other for 15 years. But they don't know our strengths. When we work together, Commander Do-hyun leaned forward. What kind of numbers are we looking at on our side? 50 human ships and 30 Velari vessels, Admiral Nari replied grimly. We're outnumbered almost 3-1. But something strange was happening to Taman and Raelith as they worked together on the military preparations. Their extended consciousness sharing was changing them both physically and mentally. Dr. Minji noticed it first during their medical checkups. Taman, your neural pathways are adapting. You're developing the ability to interface directly with crystal-based technology. And Your Majesty, she turned to the Queen, your consciousness patterns are showing human-like intuitive leaps and tactical thinking. Is that dangerous? Taman asked. I don't think so, Minji replied, though her expression showed uncertainty. You're both evolving, becoming something new, something that bridges both species. The combined fleet preparations were unlike anything either side had ever attempted. Human engineers worked alongside Velari crystal singers to modify ship systems. Human pilots trained to interface with crystal controls, while Velari warriors learned human combat tactics. But integration wasn't easy. During one training exercise, a human cruiser accidentally overloaded its new crystal power core, nearly destroying itself. In another incident, Velari energy weapons installed on human ships proved too powerful for the targeting systems, resulting in friendly fire incidents. This isn't working, General Choi Sung-hoon complained during one particularly difficult session. Despite his involvement in the wedding attack, he had been kept on as an advisor due to his tactical expertise. Our technologies are too different. We're going to destroy ourselves before the Shadowkin even arrive. That's when Taman and Raelith made a decision that shocked everyone. We'll serve as living interfaces, Queen Raelith announced to the combined command staff. Through our bond, we can translate not just languages and concepts, but actual technological protocols in real time. That's impossible, Dr. Song protested. The data processing requirements alone would overwhelm human neural capacity. Not human neural capacity, Taman replied, his eyes showing a new kind of awareness. Human Velari neural capacity. We're not just married. We're becoming something new. The solution was elegant and dangerous. Taman and Raelith would be stationed aboard the flagship, their consciousness link extended through crystal networks to every ship in the combined fleet. They would serve as living translators, allowing human creativity to merge with Velari energy manipulation in real time. When the Shadowkin fleet arrived, they came expecting to face two weakened civilizations still divided by war. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly unified force. The enemy was led by Warden Zephyrian, a massive creature that seemed to be made of living shadow with multiple eyes that burned like stars. His flagship, a twisted mass of dark metal and corrupted crystal, was twice the size of any vessel in the combined fleet. Humans and Velari! Zephyrian's voice reached them across the communication channels, distorted and cold. Your pathetic attempt at unity changes nothing. We have studied you for generations. We know every weakness, every flaw in your technologies and tactics. The first engagement proved him right. The Shadowkin weapons seemed specifically designed to exploit the gaps between human and Velari technology. Their ships phased through Velari energy shields while shrugging off human kinetic weapons. Within minutes, 3 allied ships were destroyed. They're adapting to everything we throw at them, Admiral Nari reported grimly. It's like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it. That's when Taman and Raelith's unique bond proved its worth. Through their shared consciousness, they began coordinating tactics that neither species could have developed alone. Human fighters, use Velari crystal enhancement on your missiles, Taman commanded, his mind processing tactical data through his wife's expanded awareness. Velari ships, adopt human evasion patterns while charging energy weapons. The battle became a dance of innovation. Human ships powered by Velari crystals could suddenly phase shift like energy beings. Velari vessels using human tactics became unpredictable, breaking their usual pattern-based formations. But the Shadowkin had one. 5 years had passed since the battle against the Shadowkin fleet. The galaxy was a different place now, shaped by the unprecedented union between humanity and the Velari. What had begun as a desperate marriage proposal to end a war had become the foundation for something no one could have imagined. Taman and Raelith stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the massive space station that served as the capital of their joint civilization. Their forms shifted fluidly between human and Velari appearance as they watched ships from dozens of different species dock at the station's many ports. Where once there had been only two warring civilizations, now there was a thriving galactic community. "Do you ever miss being just human?" Raelith asked, her voice carrying both the musical tones of Velari speech and the warmth of human emotion. "Do you ever miss being just Velari?" Taman replied with a smile. Their consciousness was so intertwined now that such questions were almost meaningless. They were both and neither, something entirely new. Elder Council leader Yalthara approached. Them, her ancient crystalline form moving slowly but with dignity. She was the oldest living Velari, having witnessed the transformation of her people from physical to energy beings millennia ago. "The council session is about to begin," she informed them. "The representatives are eager to hear your decision about the proposal from the Kepler Federation." The Kepler Federation was a group of 12 species that had requested to join the Human-Velari Alliance. It would be the largest expansion since the Alliance's formation, but it also presented new challenges. As they made their way to the council chamber, Captain Ohyuna fell into step beside them. She now served as Admiral of the Integrated Fleet, commanding ships crewed by multiple species working together. Her uniform bore insignia from both human and Velari military traditions. "The Federation representatives are nervous," she reported. "They're worried about the integration process. Some of their species have never even encountered energy-based consciousness before." Taman nodded thoughtfully. The integration process had become much more sophisticated over the years. Dr. Minji, now Director of Xenobiological Sciences, had developed methods to help different species adapt to consciousness-sharing technology without the dangerous trials that Taman and Raelith had undergone. The council chamber was a marvel of cooperative engineering. The circular room accommodated the physical needs of dozens of different species, from the methane-breathing Zorathi to the silicon-based crystallines. At the center sat President Lee Dong-hyuk, who had been elected as the first leader of the unified human Velari government. "Your Majesties," President Dong-hyuk said as they took their seats, "we have a situation that requires your unique perspective." The main display showed star charts marking the border regions where Shadowkin's scouts had been spotted. While Warden Zephyrian's main fleet had retreated after their defeat, they had not abandoned their plans for conquest. "Intelligence reports suggest they're building something in the dark matter nebula beyond the rim," explained Dr. Song Kyung-ho, now head of the Technology Integration Department. "Something that could threaten not just our alliance, but every civilization in this galaxy." Young Princess Lyramine, Taman and Raelith's adopted daughter and heir, spoke up from her position near the data displays. At 15 years old, she was already showing remarkable abilities that combined human creativity with Velari energy manipulation. Her crystal organic hybrid physiology allowed her to interface directly with both human and Velari technology. "The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases," she reported, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had grown up in a world where impossible was just another word for not yet achieved. "But the scale is enormous. Whatever they're building, it's planet-sized." Taman and Raelith exchanged one of their silent communications, their shared consciousness processing the information in ways that individual minds could not. After a moment, they turned to address the Council. "The Shadowkin learned from our first encounter," they said in their harmonized voice. "They understand now that unity is our strength. So they're building something designed to turn that strength against us." Elder Yalthara leaned forward, her ancient wisdom evident in her next words. "There is something I must tell you. Something the Council of Ancients decided long ago to keep secret until it became necessary." The chamber fell silent. Yalthara's secrets were legendary among the Velari. The transformation our people underwent millennia ago, the evolution from physical to energy beings, was not natural. It was forced upon us by the same enemy you now face. The Shadowkin drove us to the brink of extinction, and transformation was our only choice for survival. The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. If the Shadowkin had successfully conquered the Veilari once before, what chance did the current alliance have? But there is hope, Yalthara continued. The transformation taught us something valuable. Evolution is not about becoming stronger or more advanced. It's about becoming more connected, more unified. What you and your husband have achieved represents the next step in that evolution. Dr. Minji stepped forward, her face showing excitement despite the grave situation. The consciousness-bridging technology we've developed based on your bond, we could scale it up. Create a network that connects not just two individuals, but entire civilizations. A galactic consciousness network, Princess Lyramine added, understanding immediately. Every willing individual connected, able to share knowledge, abilities, and creativity across species barriers. The implications were staggering. Such a network would make the Alliance's forces thousands of times more effective, but it would also fundamentally change what it meant to be an individual. The risks? President Donghyuk asked. Unknown, Dr. Minji admitted. We'd be creating something that has never existed before. The potential for both advancement and catastrophe is enormous. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Representatives argued about individual rights, the danger of loss of identity, and the technical challenges of connecting radically different types of consciousness. But in the end, it was the arrival of an unexpected guest that settled the debate. Warden. Zephyrian himself appeared in the chamber, not physically, but as a holographic projection transmitted across space. His shadow-wreathed form seemed to absorb light from the room around him. So, the prey finally understands the magnitude of the hunt, he said, his voice carrying malicious amusement. Yes, we are building something that will end your pathetic alliance permanently. But it is not a weapon. The projection moved closer, to Taman and Rayalith. It is a consciousness virus, a signal that will shatter every mental link in your alliance, leaving you isolated, afraid, and easy to conquer. In 72 hours, we will activate it. Your unity will become your weakness. The projection vanished, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Well, Taman said after a moment, that settles the debate about the consciousness network. Rayalith nodded. If they're planning to attack our mental connections, our only defense is to make those connections stronger than they can break. The wide next 72 hours saw the most intensive collaborative effort in galactic history. Scientists, engineers, and consciousness specialists from dozens of species worked together to build the network infrastructure. Princess Lyramine proved crucial to the project, her hybrid nature allowing her to serve as a living interface between different types of consciousness technology. When the Shadowkin virus activated, it encountered not the fragmented alliance it expected, but a unified galactic consciousness that spanned hundreds of worlds and billions of individuals. Instead of shattering the connections between species, the virus became absorbed into the network, its destructive energy transformed into something that strengthened the bonds it was meant to break. The final confrontation came not as a battle of ships and weapons, but as a meeting of minds. Warden Zephyrian found himself facing not individual opponents but the combined will of an entire galactic civilization. This is impossible, he raged, as his consciousness was drawn into the network against his will. Individuality cannot survive. In unity, you will lose yourselves. No, Taman and Rayalith replied, their voices now joined by millions of others in perfect harmony. We become ourselves. Unity doesn't erase individuality. It reveals what we truly are when we're not afraid of each other. The Shadowkin Empire collapsed not through conquest, but through transformation. Exposed to the galactic consciousness network, they discovered that their millennia of isolation and manipulation had been born from fear, not strength. Given the choice between continuing their lonely existence and joining the growing community of connected civilizations, most chose connection. Years later, as Taman and Rayalith watched their daughter Lyramine graduate from the Integrated Academy alongside classmates from 40 different species, they reflected on how far they had all come. Do you think we made the right choice? Rayalith asked, watching as students who looked nothing alike worked together on projects that would have been impossible for any single species to achieve. Look around, Taman replied. War has been replaced by collaboration. Fear has been replaced by curiosity. Isolation has been replaced by